I am live now. Again, I know the picture quality is horrible and it looks actually even worse once it's done on YouTube. I thought I would just jump on, do live. It's just easier this way. We have just had the announcement. I don't even know whether to really wait if anybody jumps on to this. Probably not. But anyway, might as well start. We've just had the announcement, and the reason why I've jumped on live is because this is pretty significant announcement by the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, basically ordering virtual a lot of the businesses in the UK to actually close. He has ordered cafes, pubs, bars, restaurants, and gyms to close from tonight in a bid to stop the coronavirus. He also said clubs, leisure centres, and theatres should close their doors too. He said he acknowledged that people may be tempted to go out on Friday night, but urged people to stay at home. So this is basically the government taking control, and I don't know, is it a little bit too soft? Would you say it's martial law? Not quite yet, but it's certainly kind of that direction. This announcement, this guidance, they're calling it to actually to close all of these clubs, the restaurants, cafes, basically pretty much a lot of the city centre. Certainly here in Dundee, Scotland, where I actually am, a lot of these places have already announced that they're closing. A couple of shops, including River Island, and I can't remember the other one. I think it's TK Maxx or something. They've already stated they will close from tonight, I believe, or have closed already. Certainly will close either at the end of today, which is when I'm doing this live at about 5 to 6 at night. So they're either shut now or will be shutting in the next couple of days until this pandemic is over, until the situation clears up. I am affected in that way personally by well, not by this announcement, because as I said in my last video, I am actually unemployed, but I do volunteer at a charity shop. It's Chest, Heart and Stroke Scotland. There's shops literally all over Scotland. Uh, really good charity, but they announced literally about maybe half an hour, 20 minutes before Boris Johnson's press conference began. They put up a Facebook video with an executive. Basically, she said that they'd taken the decision to close all the shops until further notice, which is, again, just like I said about the previous live stream, I said that fluid situation is a word that's being used a lot. Until further notice is one that is absolutely being used continually. Until further notice seems to be the basic. I don't know, is it tagline? Safe words, I suppose you could call it. Although safe words, I suppose, is something different. And that's basically kind of the phrase, the go-to phrase, I suppose. Actually, you could call it more likely the go-to phrase. Just when you don't know the exact details of what's happening. So until further notice, it seems that all cafes, bars, cafes, pubs, bars, restaurants, and gyms are to close. Now there is a bit I didn't snip to all of it because I'm not sure exactly whether I could. Sometimes I couldn't. I can't. When I've done live before, I try to go on other tabs and it cuts the live stream. They have said that some of these restaurants can actually reopen as takeaway, which anybody in the UK, I'm sure it's probably right. I'm sure it is right across the UK. Anybody who's noticed, and I don't know about other companies like Burger King or Subways or anything like that. but certainly McDonald's here in the UK have gone to a takeaway only service. You can only order food to take it away. Obviously, that's what a takeaway service is, but there is the restrictions in place where they basically, especially the one in the city centre of Dundee, they put the barriers up so around the seating area, so you obviously can't go in there and sit and eat your stuff, which will have an effect on the business. Any of these businesses, even these restaurants that um, can reopen, and I'm not sure because it's just been announced, so I don't know exactly what, whether if you've got a cafe, can you reopen that as simply takeaway only? I know some cafes, it's been in the news over the last couple of days, have just decided to close completely. There's one gentleman in London, I know London's about to lock down a little bit just now, but there was one guy, I think he was Greek, some Greek, that kind of area of Europe, but he just decided to close completely for a few weeks because just the risk to customers. He was hardly getting any customers in anyway, and I kind of understand that. With when I was volunteering earlier this week on the Tuesday, there was just hardly anybody in. Wednesday, slightly more busy, but then yesterday when I was in town doing a few photos, because I really don't know what the situation is in terms of legally being able to get out and about and doing stuff. It was slightly busier in the town, in the city centre. So this obviously kind of will stop a lot of people going into city centres anyway, and going to the areas where a lot of these cafes, restaurants, and that are. I can't see really any of these pubs and clubs being allowed to remain open if that is the again, I'm just looking on the snip that I took. Uh, like I'll get to I'll get to that in a second. I'm kind of jumping. I don't want to jump around a little bit on my what I'm talking about. A lot of these, obviously, the cafes. Some of them could reopen. Pubs and bars and restaurants. No, the pubs and bars. I would say a lot of them will remain shut for the time being. Gyms will obviously have to remain open. There's literally no takeaway from you could do the gym. There's online classes. The kind of guy I know, he's a personal trainer, and I can't remember what it's called now. It's Alpha Fitness is the name of his thing. His business. He does it. He's from Perth. That's where he's based as well. So, I don't obviously he was worrying about that earlier in the Facebook post. He's also a wrestler. That's how I know him. A really good wrestler, and I'll get to wrestling in a couple of minutes actually. But just because it's an interest of mine, and it's obviously going to affect the local shows. Certainly, there's online classes, online possibilities these days, but a lot of these places will close. They will be closed for the time being again until further notice. So places like like I said, gyms, etc., they will be closed. So cafes, pubs, bars, restaurants, and gyms are all being ordered to close from tonight and bid to stop the coronavirus. But instead, some places, some restaurants, I'm sure, and probably including the larger ones like McDonald's, Burger King, Subways, they'll be takeaway only. But I would suggest to anybody who ends up watching this video, check your local area. I don't know whether some of these companies have so-called local Facebook pages, but they all link back and are all taken from the same feed. But obviously, if you are out and about, you can check your own local McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, etc., and see what they're saying. But yeah, to be honest, it's kind of going to be not the death knell for now for city centres, because what a lot of city centres are made of really just now. They're what populates a lot of these city centres. Like I said, I'm effectively the Chest, Heart and Stroke Scotland shop closing now. They're closed all their stores in Scotland until further notice, as I stated. We were, I can say, from a personal point of view, we were actually determined to keep going. We obviously were open to the public this week and the last couple of weeks when this has all kind of come up. my manager, myself, some of the rest of the volunteers, we were legitimately determined to keep going until we were told otherwise. Okay, what we do get our clientele. It's a very mixed clientele, to be honest. In that charity shop, like a lot of charity shops, we get the elderly, people who don't have much money. We have, like I've said before, we have a lot of foreign nationals, people who are maybe studying here in Dundee, work and live in Dundee, for whatever reason they're in the city and the area, whatever. Even a couple of tourists actually in the last couple of days. American gentleman. I can't remember where the other gentleman was from, but certainly, there's a couple of tourists. You actually could have a couple of people from Europe that actually volunteers in the shop. Um, Again, there's a lot. Obviously, Scotland's a very, very, very mixed country when it comes to ethnic races, groups, whatever. We were legitimately determined to keep going, to continue to process stock. We sell clothes, DVDs, CDs, both ladies and gents' clothes, bric-a-brac kind of thing. Different things, cups, some cutlery, books as well. We were determined to keep going until, again, like I said, we were told otherwise, and now we actually have. So it's right now. We don't know exactly when we'll be reopened. The lady said on that Facebook video, you can search on Chest, Heart, and Stroke Scotland. They are trying to start raising donations, and I'm not on here trying to ask for donations to that charity or any charity. Um, it's up to each individual person who whether they want to donate to any local charity or anybody that may be struggling in this situation. And I never pressure sell either. I know if anybody says, "Oh, do you think I should buy this?" I'll say, "It's entirely up to yourself." But obviously, this is going to put a stop to a lot of people going in the city centres with everything closed down. What I will say as well, in terms of transport links, we have heard from Explore Dundee, and again, this is quite a localized, excuse me, update regarding what happened. We have heard from Explore Dundee, which is the main bus company in Dundee. So if you want to get around the city, it's basically Explore Dundee bus. Uh, there's obviously like Stagecoach, but you want the main routes from city centre to all the different areas of Dundee. It's Explore Dundee. They're going onto a public holiday service now. This means that the regularity of the services are obviously slightly less because even though the kids are coming off, I was going to literally record like a whole video about this. School children have finished today. Well, it's now just after 6:05 p.m. So school children are finished now and don't know when they'll be back. There is fears or concerns that they may not be back in this academic year. So they may not even be back till August. That is the fear. Boris Johnson did say yesterday, I think they are doing kind of daily press conferences. I'm sure it was yesterday that he said, we may be able to beat this in about 12 weeks, which is 4 months. So a very long time, in actual fact. Uh, so there are fears that they, especially with, obviously kids are not at school, normally because there's no demand or not as much demand. Public transport companies like Explore Dundee, they'll reduce their timetables. They'll just reduce the regularity of their actual buses, and with potentially even less demands, we don't know whether they will actually continue running the service as much, especially with all of this going on. Hopefully, Explore Dundee and other local bus companies, in your area will make regular statements. They did. There was rumor going around that they'd be on a Sunday service, which is very restrictive, especially in some routes. Some of them are very restrictive. So it goes like say even maybe a few buses an hour to maybe one or two buses an hour. well, I'm going to wait and see. I don't want to make any comments like, oh, they're going to do this, oh, they're going to do that, because that's not necessarily. I don't know what indeed they will do now that these particular restrictions have been put in place. They may reduce it further. They may reduce. They may just well. To be honest, I think there's a possibility they'll reduce it further and then introduce it as their public holiday service and say, all right, well, this is the restrictions we're doing. Even if they, like I said, they may be thinking of on a one particular route, 2 buses an hour, they may reduce it to one and then just put that out as their public holiday service. Though whether they're going to be able to keep, whether they're going to keep keeping the service going, a lot of people will obviously need it. There's lots of places like hospitals, supermarket workers, many key personnel are still needing to get where they are. I used to work as a kitchen porter in a unit where they produced the meals on wheels. If I was still working there, I would more than likely still be going to work because obviously they still need to get fed. So I don't know what their situation is with this because obviously it's been a good couple of years now since I left. But essential services like that. Not everybody drives. Not everybody has transport. Some people may live a little bit away, so obviously that kind of transport, buses and that, will still be needed. So it's. I honestly think with this thing, they also said about the government would step in to pay about 80% of salaries of retained workers. There's already been a couple of examples. I'm going to try of just people basically getting crapped on. Let's basically a hotel in Aviemore. They've sacked their entire staff and evicted them from the staff lodgings. That's a big thing that I think it was just yesterday that came to light. I don't know what's happening with that situation. There's a couple of politicians looking into it. So I really hope that a lot of businesses don't go down that route of just there's no demand, we don't need you anymore, out on your ear, and a lot of people will obviously end up on the breadline, end up on the job seekers or universal credit, whichever one. I think they kind of paused universal credit, but they'll end up on the benefit system anyway. Which is, I suppose, a little bit of a fallback position, but it depends on how long, especially with universal credit, can take up to about 6.5, nearly 7 weeks, sometimes to get paid, depending on where they are in the cycle. I just missed, when I returned from holiday a couple of years ago, I just missed a cycle or something, and it ended up like nearly 7 weeks till I got any money at all. So I don't know, people say, oh, there's emergency loans and that, but you need to pay them back and you're not really better off. And I don't know, it's exceptional circumstances. I will say very quickly, because I don't want to make this a lot more than about 20 minutes. The local wrestling shows, that, as far as the last time I heard, was on the 28th, which is just over a week. This is the 20th of March, so in about 8 days, or it's really about 7 days. So, because it's getting late. But in about, we'll just call it 8 days anyway. I honestly do not know whether that will go ahead. And a lot of wrestling companies have actually decided to cancel their events. I could honestly see with this advice now being given, I can see that either not happening or it being streamed online if they do go ahead with it. They did say if it's close to the public, they may be able to do a live streaming of the event, kind of like WWE, the biggest wrestling company or sports entertainment company are doing right now. They're filming everything but without a crowd, with no audience, even with their biggest show, WrestleMania, coming up. But anyway, I have to say that again. I'm going on yabbered on long enough, I think. But that is, this is. I wouldn't say this is a kind of a game changer in terms of how the crisis is going, but it's certainly a massive change. This isn't, to be honest, because this isn't really government advice. because Boris Johnson has ordered cafes, pubs, bars, restaurants, and gyms to close from tonight. So this is really a major step in what is going on in terms of this coronavirus crisis. And we'll see exactly what is going to happen from here. Like I said, I do see the effects of this transport being cut, links being cut a little bit more. I don't know whether people will be more tempted to, stay at home, or whether people now having children at home for who knows how long may be tempted to venture out. I did see a lot of some families with young kids out and about yesterday. But yeah, certainly this is genuinely a major step in terms of what is happening in the UK in terms of the coronavirus crisis. The ordering of cafes, pubs, bars, restaurants, and gyms, also clubs, leisure centres, and theatres. Like I also said, and I know again, I'll wrap up in a minute, but pretty much all the attractions here in Dundee have already closed. V&A Museum, the McManus Galleries, the Transport Museum, the Unicorn, the pretty much like all the attractions right now are closed. So if those are closed, and now all the cafes and pubs and etc. have now been ordered to shut. I know obviously this is all aimed at trying to stem the spread of the coronavirus, and perhaps there might be a little bit more of a chance to do so because, like I said, in these areas, there's not going to be many people. There are not going to be many reasons to go to places if it's all closed, which may help the fight, may not. But yeah, I don't. Again, wrap up in a second. Are we going for an actual physical legal lockdown? I'm not entirely sure at this point whether we'll get any edicts like that. I'm not entirely sure that we will get a stay in your homes or else kind of order. I think that would have to be like the last resort. But I think what they're putting in place right now is basically that it's a de facto stay at home or else kind of deal. So I like I said before, I also sign off saying this. Just keep if you have to venture out, if you have to deal with members of the public, if you're tempted to your job, and I know there's a lot of people who have to deal with it, and there's a lot of retail workers, health care workers are doing an excellent job. Like I said, putting themselves at risk from contact with various patients who may or may not have a virus, even if it's coronavirus or something else or other health condition that may be contractable. There's a lot of people putting themselves at risk, ambulance workers, all emergency workers, etc. Obviously, again, that's one of the things. My uncle, who used to work in the ambulance service for many, many years, practically his whole working life. It was only like a year or two when he was younger, while he was waiting to get into it. It's a good show, and obviously good emergency workers are those who are running to a situation where all the rest of the people are running that way. They're running that way towards it. So if you are a retail worker or a health worker, again, just try and keep your own personal hygiene up. Just try and be as careful as you can. And if the advice does come for everybody to stay in as much as possible, I'm afraid we're just going to have to grin and bear it. But as I said, it looks like we are facing disruption at the end towards the end of the year. I was going to talk about public events. They're all going to be cancelled. I can't see very many, if any, public events happening. Open days, fairs, various Dundee Pride, all all the usual open transport museum open days and all that kind of thing. I can't really see that happening either. But again, we're just going to have to kind of grin and bear it. There's not much else we can do. It is a dangerous situation. And I will click off here if anybody's watching. I don't think anybody is, but Yeah, it's certainly that Boris Johnson ordering all of these closures is certainly a significant step and a significant, I think, maybe change of tact for the government in terms of their coronavirus approach.